Not too long ago, I attended a Toastmaster meeting where John was evaluating Joe. And John said to Joe, he said, "Joe, you have been a Toastmaster long enough. I'm going to give you a stronger evaluation." What happened, ladies and gentlemen, is that John really tore into Joe on things he thought Joe could do better. I really felt bad for Joe. But that brings to mind that from time to time that we, as Toastmasters, should review tips and techniques on how we could be doing evaluations to make sure that we're both efficient or doing a good job of the evaluation, and at the same time make sure that we take into account the speaker's feelings. First off, I'd like to talk about a couple different methods for evaluating. And the first one, as you see here, is the sandwich method. You may have heard of this before, but this analogy allows us to have that bun be something positive. That's what we'll start with, something positive that the speaker did. And then we're going to lay on some condiments on that bun, more positive attributes of the speaker's talk. And then we put on some meat for this sandwich. And in this case, it would be constructive criticism. Then in my case, I would lay on some more condiments, some more things that speaker did well, and then finally top it off with something else that the speaker did well. This is the sandwich method. That way you can have a complete balanced meal or a complete balanced evaluation. Now, let's talk about the second methodology, and that is the saw, heard, felt method. Using this method, you can do these three observations. First, for instance, let's talk about what you saw. I saw a great use of hand gestures, you could say. Or I struggled to see your face with that light right behind you. I really liked your use of a smile to open up your speech. Before you ever said a word, you captivated me. These are ideas or thoughts of how you might be able to incorporate this into what you saw. Here's some ideas that you can use during the heard portion of your evaluation. I liked the way that you paused right after your opening question. It gave me a chance to think about your question. Or, I really liked the way that you used your British accent to draw out that conversation that you were having with the ship's captain. Or perhaps you could say, I struggled to hear you when you turned away from the camera for a moment. Ideas on how you can evaluate for what you heard. What I felt version of this evaluation, you could say, as an example, I felt your emotion when you talked about standing in the receiving line during your mother's funeral. Or I sensed your enthusiasm when you talked about seeing the Grand Canyon for the first time. But you put all of these together, what you saw, what you heard, what you felt. You put all those together, and those are the components for a good evaluation. Let's be honest. What do I mean by that? I mean, be honest in your evaluation of your speaker, but also be caring and sensitive and work to maintain that speaker's self-esteem. Put that all together, and then you have a much better balanced approach to your evaluation of that speaker. Here I'm asking you to open your evaluation with your overall impression of how the speaker did. A positive evaluation I'm asking also. And you don't need to get into specifics Well, you could say, typically, you could say, I love the way that you opened your speech and you carried your enthusiasm all the way through to the end with that dynamic conclusion. And then you go into the details of what you saw, heard, or felt, or the sandwich technique. But start with the overall impression of how that speaker did. The rule of thumb means for every item that you think they could improve upon in their speech, give them 3 things that you thought that they did very well. By doing that, you're able to maintain the speaker's self-esteem and at the same time give them a good evaluation. The rule of thumb. How you say it really does matter. When you're doing an evaluation, you are giving your opinion. You could say, I liked, I saw, I. It's okay to use the word I at this point. Perfectly okay, because you're just giving your opinion. I felt like this, or I thought that. Don't use statements like, we didn't hear you very well. You could say, I couldn't hear you very well. Don't do all-inclusive statements. Don't use judgment statements. Don't say, good leaders never do this, or a good speaker doesn't do that. You're just giving your evaluation, your opinion, and you're giving it with respect. Perhaps you've heard of the but and technique. Let's say you're doing an evaluation and you say, you gave an excellent speech, but it would have been better if you had your camera on. Now compare that to this. You gave an excellent speech and it would have been even better with your camera on. See how it feels? So instead of using the word but, use the word and to drive something home. The other day, I did an evaluation on a speaker, and I bet I had 9 things that I had listed that they had done well. Then over on the other side of the ledger, I found 3 things that they could improve upon. But as an evaluator, sometimes you just don't have time to discuss everything that you saw. Pick out 3 or 4 things that you observed and give specifics within those 3 or 4 things. Then that way, you'll have a good evaluation in a timely manner. Did you know that Toastmasters encourages us to have a conversation with our speaker before and even after their speech? When you do it that way, then you better understand the speaker's pathways journey where they are, and at the same time, the speaker gets a better idea of their own pathways. And additionally, you find out more about the speaker's goals. I'm reminded of a speaker a while back where one of her goals was to have better eye contact with the audience. But I would not have known that had I not had that conversation with her. I'm suggesting you have, when you do a pre and a post discussion, strive to have one. You'll be able to give a better evaluation and your speaker will be better for it. This is more for a new Toastmaster. If you're new to evaluating, don't be intimidated by an experienced Toastmaster and having to do an evaluation. Your fresh set of eyes can see things that perhaps an experienced Toastmaster might not notice. So strive, take it on, and evaluate anyone and everyone. You want to become a better evaluator? Always be evaluating. What I'm getting at is, even though you might be in a meeting and you're not the evaluator, Take notes on what the speaker is saying and evaluate them, both what they did well, what they could improve upon. And then when the evaluator gives their evaluation, then that way you can see how well you did versus the evaluator. It'll help you become a better evaluator. So always be evaluating. At the end of your evaluation, do a summary statement and throw in a bunch of things that you thought the speaker did well. You've heard of the recency and primacy factors, where you remember the first and the last, the most recent. Well, in your summary statement, you want to leave that speaker with a good feeling. So give a good positive twist right at the end by summarizing all the positive attributes. Remember, I started out this talk with the evaluation of John for Joe. Should that happen in one of your meetings, know that your general evaluator, his role or her role is to evaluate the evaluators so they could temper any inadvertent, harsh evaluation. Keep that in mind as you are in the role of a general evaluator. Come to the aid of a speaker who needs that support. I hope that you're able to incorporate some of these tips or all of these tips. I think that they'll make a better Toastmaster out of you. And at the same time, your speakers will learn more and appreciate it more and grow at the same time. An evaluation should always be encouraging, positive, and able to help a speaker improve.